Hi, I'm Susan Graw, and I am an evidential medium. I am a near-death experiencer, an author, and I'm going to share a little bit today about my NDE, my near-death experience. I was 4.5 years old, and I was locked in an unplugged freezer in a garage. I was playing fort with some boys, and they said if I got up in this freezer that they would let me play with them if I got some popsicles. And I didn't realize it wasn't plugged in. I was pretty tiny. And I climbed up, facing inward, of course, and they closed the freezer door. And at first I thought, oh, I'm in on a game. This is a game we're playing. And then it dawned on me, and when I heard the garage door close and thud, that this was not a game. And I began screaming. I think we innately have this feeling inside of us that I knew I was going to die, but I knew something really bad was happening and something really bad was going to happen to me. And it's a survival, innate survival. It came upon me. I think it comes upon anyone who's in that situation at any age. And I was screaming at the top of my lungs. And my mother heard what sounded like a cat, a high-pitched sound, and she just thought it was the cats on the land. And so she ignored it. And I continued to scream. And before I knew it, I saw 3 bright lights. And I remember them saying, "Stop screaming, Susan." I didn't. I kept screaming. And then I heard one say, "Susie, stop screaming. We're going to get your mommy." After that occurred, I could feel myself. I didn't feel pulled out of my body like most people, but I did feel myself leave my body. And I don't remember looking back at my body at all, which was odd because most people do. But what I ended up on is the bottom of a set of stairs. And they were very broke and cracked and old. And I remember looking up and thinking, because I was me, how am I going to get up to the top of those stairs? Because I felt like jello. I felt very jello-y and liquid-like I could melt in a pot of butter at any moment, like butter would. And the next thing I knew, I was on the edge of this well. I knew there was something there, like a hole, but I didn't know what it was. I had looked up at first and I saw these pillars, and looking back now I can call it a Greco-Roman rune, but at that time I didn't know what that was. And there were these broken pillars and an open ceiling, and I was looking down into this well that matched the opening in the ceiling. And I watched these movements. It was like one consciousness, and it was words and prayers. I could hear people saying, my mommy's got cancer. God, please don't let her die. And I could hear, I'm going to turn 16 and I want a car. My dad won't buy me a car. Please, God, make him give me a car. And I was hearing all of these desires and prayers. And I looked at these beautiful lights that were still with me that I call my angels. And I asked them, do you answer all those? And they said, no, Susie. Sometimes what people desire the most isn't good for them. And I was in shock that they said that. I wanted that to go away because my mom would say that to me, just because you want it doesn't mean it's good for you. And I just thought, where am I? Where is this place? That I felt very safe. I felt very kind energy around me. This room was beautiful. I saw things moving around in it, and I saw people walking through it. And I was asking, what are you doing? And they would be like, I'm jello feeling too, and I'm having help to get through this room. And then I looked ahead of me and I saw this road, and it looked like what I called the yellow brick road because I'd seen The Wizard of Oz. And I saw pyramids at the front of this road, and I watched people come in, and I think they were people. They were showing me humans come in and pull from the bottom of this pyramid, and they started paving their path. And I don't know if I innately knew or they put in me to know that this was their life balance journey. This was the balancing of their life journey. And they were pulling from the bottom of these pyramids and trying to pave their path, and their balance would get off. And I watched them drop to their knees and say, for the love of God, nothing's working. Please help me do something. And I watched these beautiful lights come in and start removing these pavers and put them back. And they'd go to the top of this pyramid and they'd pull pavers and they would recreate themselves. So it was like, oh, we recreate. So I was thinking reincarnation, but I wasn't at that time. I think that now, but I'm still unsure. And I watched these beautiful entities start pulling these pavers from the top and go and start paving this path, this beautiful golden path. And I asked them, what are you doing? And they said, we are the pavers, you are not. All you have to do is walk it. I'm sure they put these questions in my head, but I said, how do you know if you're walking it right? And they said, we bless and block everything, but make no mistake, you can get through a block battered and bruised at best, or you can shift. And if you see another wall, shift again. You see another wall, shift again. And before you know it, you'll see us paving your path. We know what's right for you. You think you know what's right for you. And they told me what you try to control controls you, and what you run from chases you. I never forgot those lines, and I never listened. Throughout my whole journey, I was still trying to control everything. That's just what I did. But I understand it now. And I flashed on some other things in this, I call them all rooms, but they were just a place that I was. And then I flashed into what they called the room of knowledge. And I saw these virtual movements of, they weren't books, but they weren't tablets. It was just this movement I knew was history of some sort, and I didn't really understand. And I watched these families start talking about what they were going to do on their journey. And one of the people, they were saying things like, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to go through this, and I'm going to go through that, so my soul can really expand. And I heard one of the angelic beings say, oh, that's just way too much. You don't want to do that much. That's too hard. That's too hard of a journey. And I heard this person say, I can do it. I know I can do it. I just want to get this done. I know I can handle it. And they said, well, you do have free will. And then they were gone. And I asked, where did they go? And they said to their next incarnation. No clue what they meant. None. Later on in life, someone came up to me and said, do you believe in reincarnation? And I went, oh my God, there's that word. Incarnation, reincarnation, there's that word. What? And I knew what they meant. I just knew. And it was so amazing to have that verification that what I had written down and shared with my family was actually being retold to me on this planet in some form. And another place I went was called the Room of Companions. And I saw these beautiful animals, creatures moving through this beautiful field of dandelions. You know, those things you blow on to make a wish. I saw a bunch of those, but they were beautiful and big and different than what I'd seen here. And there were colors everywhere. And I remember watching angels speak, and it was music. And today I understand that, you know, that's why music is so touching to our souls, and it's so healing for us, because it comes from the angelic realm. And somebody asked me one time, do angels have wings? And I said, I don't think so. I don't know, because their light shines about 4 feet out from them. And so when they lift something, you see 4 feet of light. So it could be wings, but I think it was a light energy coming from them. I called them my light angels. So I was in this place that was out in this field, and I could see animals moving around and playing and romping, and I felt very safe. And I had an experience with this, what I call source, which is still very emotional for me. I looked to my left, and I looked up on this mountain of some sort, and I saw this beautiful being emanating a ray around them that was like nothing I'd ever seen. And it was love, like no love we could even imagine. I wanted to get up that mountain so bad, and I couldn't. And this love started coming towards me like a ray. The being didn't move, but this ray of love started coming toward me like nothing I'd ever seen or felt. I don't know how to describe it. And I was filled with this love. I was everything, and I was nothing. And I was perfect in every possible way. And I remember that feeling of love that I have been searching for on this planet my whole journey, that I have never felt. I can get close to it by saying, when my children were put in my arms, I felt that love, that unconditional, overwhelming love. And I looked to my right, and in between this, some things happened that I don't normally share on podcasts, but I'll share a little bit of it. I saw a beautiful pyramid shaped, I want to call it a crystal, but I don't know if it was. It was kind of sheer. And I saw faces and bodies moving through it. And I reached in to get into it, and I couldn't. And I just innately knew that if I could, I wouldn't be coming back. I knew that I was seeing the spirits who had actually crossed. And I knew that I had seen something very, very special. And a lot went on with that. And a lot of information was given to me that I just keep close to my heart. Then I looked to my right, or what I thought was my right, and I saw this beautiful angelic being floating towards me. And all I could think of is, I want to float. I hope I get to float. I was little. And that's what what I thought was normal, and to feel that way and to want to do something like, oh my gosh, I can float. I don't know if I floated, to be honest with you, because I'm sure I was floating the whole time, but I don't have any memory of floating. I just remember wanting to. And this beautiful being said to me, it's time to go. And I said, okay. And I was next to this water, this beautiful river, and it was flowing just ever so slowly, ever so slightly. And it was just the most beautiful color of water. So crystal, so perfect. It's indescribable. And I remember them telling me I was going to have a hard life and that I would be helping people with it. And I accepted that. And I didn't want to go back. I wanted to see my mommy the whole time, by the way, but I didn't want to go back. And they had taught me so many things that I don't normally share, but I do want to say that I was taught so much while I was there. And I felt so many things, and it's miraculous. It's indescribable with human words. And they told me I'll go through the water to get clean. Cleansed was the word they used, but I thought they meant they were cleaning me up because I'd been in a field and I was going back to my mommy and they were going to give me a bath. That's what I thought. And no, that wasn't it. And they told me that everyone comes through the water. Now I understand. We go through the womb where there's water, and water is our cleansing mechanism. It's our healer. Many people love to be near the water, just like music. It just has something to it. And I told them I was okay where I was. And they said, but you're going to see your mommy. And during this whole time, my mother was hearing, she heard it 3 times before she took action, your baby's in the freezer. And finally, she decided to take some action. She went out, saw the garage door closed, and thought, Susie can't open that. She's too little. There was no garage door openers. So she was going to turn around, is what I believe she told me. But she's not here to tell me if I'm accurate in that. But that's what I remember. And she opened it up, and she went inside. She opened the freezer door and saw me and spun me around, and I was ashen, and my fingertips were blue. And she said that she started screaming and dropped me, and she was running to get a phone. And so she was gone. The next thing I remember, I was taking a breath. What had happened is I had hit and cracked open my chin and on the cement, on the pavement in the garage. And I took a breath. And when my mother came back out, I was breathing. And so she thought I was okay and that she overreacted. And so anyway, after that whole experience, I remember my mom telling me, don't talk about this because I saw spirits everywhere. Now, I saw them before this happened. I remember when animals would transition, I would see them floating, and that was my normal. I didn't think anything. Kind of like if we went out in the rain, I would see water on you. It would just be normal. But now looking back, I understand that I had this strange kind of magical gift. And my mother had it, my sister had it, and my brother had it. So when I woke up from that and got well, I could see spirits everywhere. And I would cover my head and say, go away, go away, go away. I thought they were the boogeyman. I didn't know who they were, and I was scared. But as time went on, it became my abnormally normal way of living. And I would just know things about people and about loved ones that had crossed over. I didn't know everything. I'm having a human experience, but I knew a lot. And it seemed odd, but I just went with it because it was my normal. I was so little when it happened that this just became normal for me. And they'd wake me up and say, wake up, I just died, and I'm so-and-so's brother's best friend, and you're going to hear I died. This is when I was in my teens. And they think I did it on purpose, and I didn't. Please tell them. And this is, I'd go, okay. And I'd write it down, and then I'd get a call the next day. And then when I was about 19, I think, my Nana died, and she came to me. And it was so profound that I decided to make a call. So I went to the phone book because we didn't have internet. And I found UCLA Medical Center because I'd read in the newspaper that they had been doing something with ESP, extrasensory perception. And I called, and the man answered, and I told him my story, and he said, oh, it sounds like you're a medium. And I said, what's that? And he said, those are people who talk to the dead. And I freaked. I hung up the phone, and I never spoke about it again. Not one word for quite a long time. But I kept getting woken up. I became a grief and addiction specialist and counselor. I did that work, and I just knew things. I would say things to people like, well, I know you're having this PTSD because of what happened with your, you're trying to revive your grandmother and you couldn't. And they'd say, I didn't tell you that. And I'd be in shock. And that just kind of warped into me doing this work. I didn't plan on doing this work. I didn't want for people to turn their back on me, and being a medium was one thing that would make people do that. They thought it was evil work or toxic or crazy. You were crazy. They told my brother he was crazy so much that he ended up schizophrenic. He was diagnosed as that. Both my brothers and my mother died by suicide. And I feel like, my brother and my mother had a lot to do with the gift they had. And I was able to go through this journey because they had told me, you're going to go through a lot on your journey. I have to say that having had the experience I had probably helped a little, but I'm not sure because I don't know what I would have been without it. But what I did do was decide to be better because of it, not in spite of it, along with every other lesson I've learned, which have been plentiful. A lot of difficult lessons. What I learned for myself is that dark and light teach us something, both. They both are equivalent in value. And in fact, I think the dark things that have happened to me have taught me more because I want out of it. I want out of the pain, so I'm working really hard to make changes. The totality of my whole life experience has been filled with difficulties that go beyond the norm. And you would think that I would have this negative victimization attitude, but I don't. Sometimes do I feel like I've been victimized? Yeah. Sometimes, but really overall, I see it as an opportunity for growth. It's not that I want the opportunity. Trust me when I tell you I don't want to lose people I love that way, but I do utilize it to the best of my ability as something that I can use to help others, and I do. Those are the kind of people that come into my office that have had loss, and usually a lot of death by suicide. So that's kind of my story and my journey. I've taken this to a whole nother level by writing my book, Infinite Life, Infinite Lessons. My book is about learning about the afterlife and my near-death experience in full detail. As time went on, I just decided that I was going to be a healer for people and do good in the world. And when I wrote my book, I did a lot of healing work in it. It wasn't a labor of love, I can tell you that. It was a labor of pain to go back and deal with being trafficked as a child and other things that occurred on my journey, not being able to birth my children, although it was the greatest gift in the world to adopt them. But it was very painful when I was going through it, and just different things that occurred on my journey that were very difficult. I learned to take those things and put them down in writing and then be able to say, this is what we do with these things. I talk a lot about intuitive hits versus fear, because fear is so powerful, and what I know is what you fear you feed, and what you feed you perceive, and what you perceive and believe becomes your reality. So it's very important because you're already living it. If you're in fear, you're already living the fear. Anything that we try to control is controlling us throughout our journey, and that includes fear. And so I decided I wasn't going to be fear-based anymore, and I'm having a human experience, so believe me when I tell you I had a lot of fear on my journey too. But when I removed the fear and let myself live in my truth, everything began to change and rearrange. I realized that every trauma I'd been through was for me to see where to shine my light, and that was on me, because my soul path was self-love along with all of you. That's your true soul path, and your life path takes you there. And self-love is the hardest thing I think we do. Honestly, I don't think it's easy. We're so hard on ourselves. And so, that's the goal, is to love ourselves as much as our soul is filled with love. And the reason is because love is the highest of vibrations. The more you love, the higher you vibrate. And what a beautiful gift that is. And the higher you vibrate, the closer you are to source. And the closer you are to source, the less you have to keep doing this if you don't want to. So that's been my journey. And I've lived my life with that throughout my complete and total crazy life. Let me just say crazy life. I was always loving narcissistic people, and I was always into the depths of that. And, I have to tell you that I knew it was lessons for me. I don't think Spirit set that up for me necessarily, but I certainly wanted to open that door. And I had to learn how to take care of myself. And I really want to encourage all of you to do the same. Learn how to take care of yourself and love yourself through your difficulties. So here's the thing. It's easy to love what's easy to love, right? It's really hard to love what isn't easy to love. And that's the goal, is all the things in me that I don't like. When I love them, I make friends with them. When I make friends with those things, I actually flip that into love of self. And my self-esteem is then in a beautiful place, because I flip those things into, wow, I'm learning something from this, and I know what I don't want to be. That's for sure. So when I find something that I don't like in someone else, or that I'm having difficulty, or in me, I go, that's what I don't want to be. And it teaches me what I do want to be. So I want to encourage all of you to heal and to see yourself as the beautiful gift that Spirit created you to be. Never doubt that for a moment. and to walk through your experiences with the bravery we all have to remain on this planet, and know that others are also walking through with bravery, and to step inside your soul source and know the value of who you are. I'm so grateful to be able to share all this with all of you, and that you're still here listening. If you're still here after all this time, you must be interested. And if you are interested, much more is shared in my book. And again, it's down in the description box, all the information to find me and to read my book, Infinite Life, Infinite Lessons. It will help you learn to connect to your loved ones. You might not do it for a living, but you'll certainly be able to give that space with them of communication. It's just a conversation. And please remember this: they are only a heartbeat away. Thank you so much.